Hey, this is a quick follow-up video to my previous one on placeholder components, in which I would like to show you how we can retain the power of placeholder components while always having some default content to work with right out of the box. Hello, my name is Adam and welcome back to the fun of iterating with Figma. In my previous video, I explained the concept of placeholder components, an easy and powerful way of avoiding detaching by making a place for your custom content to be injected later. But with components such as dropdowns, in general, you might be okay with having some default content to start with an option to override this with a custom content if it's needed. And this is where placeholder components' younger cousin comes in. So say hello to a boilerplate component. You could say that, unlike a placeholder component, this one acts incognito. You know a placeholder component when you see one, but you'll need to dive into the layers panel to know that there is a boilerplate component right in front of you. So we can say that he's like a secret agent in disguise. He wears many masks and, well, perhaps it isn't even a he. Maybe he is a she, or maybe it prefers not to self-identify at all. There is no way of knowing. But what we do know is how to bring it to life. So let's recreate this quickly to understand what is going on. When creating dropdowns in Figma, you would probably start by drawing a set of components for your dropdown list items, and then optionally, you would include some components for things like headings or dividers. And as you can see, I already have these components created. From here, normally you would probably lay out your dropdown list item components instances in an auto layout frame, add some padding and shadow around it, perhaps include a variant or two, and would call it a day. And as we all know from the previous video, this approach has some obvious flaws. So instead, before we start assembling our dropdown list component, we are going to create a content to work with first. So let me make a copy of my dropdown list item component. I'm going to make a couple of copies, but not too much, because after all, we will be able to change that later. I'm going to hit Shift-A to create an auto layout frame out of this, and I'm going to select everything again by hitting the return key to make sure that constraints are set to fill container. Then I'm going to make it a component, and I'm going to name it a default content. And I'm also going to paste a short description that I have prepared before, and we'll get back to it in a while. Alright, so now I'll go back to my main dropdown list component. I'm going to select everything inside and I'll just remove it. Then I'm going to paste an instance of my boilerplate component, and of course, I'm going to make sure that constraints are set to fill container. Good, that's it. Some of you could probably stop the video at this point. For those of you who decided to stay, let's go ahead and give it a try. I'm going to place an instance of my dropdown list component. And as you can clearly see, I am totally able to use it right out of the box. But then whenever I feel a need for something slightly more sophisticated, I can just follow this quick instruction that I have included before, and it says, if you need to customize your dropdown list, you can swap this with a local component that holds your content and name it a custom content. So let's give it a try. I'm going to select the boilerplate component and I'm going to take it out of here while holding down a command key on my keyboard. Then I'm going to detach this copy and let's see, I feel like I'm going to add a heading at the top, perhaps one more over here. And lastly, let's include a divider. Yep, that should do it. When I'm done, I can just make a local component out of it, and I can call it a custom content. And now let's go back to our dropdown list component, and using a swap instance menu, I'm going to swap the boilerplate or a default content with a custom one. And that is all there is to it. We haven't detached anything, we have managed to preserve connection with the main dropdown list component, so it means that, for example, we are totally able to increase or decrease the paddings inside of it. And at the same time, we have a total freedom of customizing the content that goes inside. I think that was pretty simple. Lastly, you might be wondering, okay, but what do I do with all those boilerplate and local components? Well, the answer is simple. You can just remove them. And in case you'll have to change something again, you can always restore them later. Before we say goodbye, I wanted to briefly mention that after publishing my first video, I'll learn about this very interesting talk that will be happening during the upcoming Figma conference, Config. The talk is named Pushing Figma to its Limits, and I know that the guys hosting it were also planning on exploring the idea of placeholder components, but they will push it way further than we did. I would definitely encourage you to give it a try, watch a video recording if you are listening to this in a month or two from now. Alright, so I think that was it for this really quick follow-up tip. There are still 7 videos that I plan on doing, so if you want to make sure you're not going to miss any of them, be sure to follow me on Twitter or subscribe to my YouTube channel. And in the meantime, take care and happy iterating.